Hi. Okay, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm going to do a little sound resonance first and welcome everybody. Hopefully you can hear this well. Thanks for being here. I'm wishing and sending thoughts of well wishes to you, your families, the land around you, the atmosphere around you, your plants, your animals, your children, and you. May you be uplifted and supported. Thanks for being here. So I'm going to suggest you might want to get out some note paper, take some notes. Today's video is going to be about quite a few things. I think first I want to start with why I do this and kind of where it's all coming from. So first, in the beginning, it kind of started out with like, let's share healing medicine things. And I still do that. And I still like to do that. But it was like, okay, let's share like the laws of the universe and tarot readings and like this really spiritual side as far as like YouTube. And I used to be on Facebook and I'm not on Facebook anymore. And it was like, I want us, like, not just, I will say selfishly a little bit for myself, I like to figure things out, and like math is one of my favorite subjects because it's like the one thing in the world that has a problem with a solution to it. You can create these systems of breaking down the numbers, figuring out A, X, Y, and you get an answer. Like, how cool is that? There's so many things in life that don't always give us an answer. And so for me, it was like a multitude of things. It started with a little bit of like what was going on personally and what I was seeing outside in my world and how it was affecting me, whether it was emotional or physical or spiritual. And through different things, like I wanted to join churches, and because of my skin tone and because of basic upbringing, I didn't really feel welcome. And, but I always had like this spiritual connection. And I'm watching the world and I'm watching my own family, and I was adopted. So the way I look at things is a little different, I think, than most people, because family to me was those who took me in, not necessarily my blood relation. And so the reason why I share these videos and I talk to you guys is because I basically have come to the conclusion that we're all under this giant spell. And if it's not a spell, it's this energy of intention that I think messes with us and keeps us from really truly being who we're capable of being. And I actually think that that's the possibility of living for many, many, many years and finding peace and serenity in health and being healthy. And then the seeking of knowledge, so to speak. And so for me, my path has been through the feminine divine, or the goddess, because there was this time in my life I kind of heard the male god say to me, hey, check out the possibility of a female god. And honestly, I waited for like lightning to come out of the sky or for the male god to show up and be like, don't listen to that lady. And the more time it took, and it's been about 20 years, I kind of was slow because I was a little afraid to fully embrace the idea of goddess or female creation. And I know in this research So it's just led me down all these different paths. It kind of started actually with African religion, so to speak, because now I'm realizing, is it African? or is it American indigenous, from who we truly were? So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and links to some of the people I've shared before as far as their research. Just some basic, simple things like wondering how the Mohawk people were able to have a Mohawk without having a bunch of gel. I've mentioned that before. Certain things like even stones. I'm really into stones and crystals. We have the Apache tear. And I don't know if you are all aware of the Apache tear. I probably have one somewhere. Or the snowflake obsidian. The Apache tear, I believe, is a form of obsidian. Let's see if I have any Apache tears. But, I mean, it's called an Apache tear, and it's super dark. I mean, it's black. It's considered obsidian, and obsidian is black. So, and then also the names of some of the tribes, like Crow and Blackfoot. And I used to just kind of wonder. And then in my own education, I have anthropology, but that's because mostly I researched and found my own biological family. But anthropology, in case you don't know, is the study of man. That's the definition. And my education was African American history and Black American history. And there were some number mishaps, like how many boats there were, how many slaves were brought over, and then there would just be way more brown people or black, which I'm trying to step away from because let's get real. And what were some other things? Well, some of the history didn't exactly match up. And I remember when I brought it to some of my teachers, it was like, double check it, or are you sure you have your information right? Or are you getting the right research? And so it was more recently that I was somehow introduced to the musical group. You can look them up on YouTube, Tribe Called Red. And in their videos, they actually show, traditional Indians, and they are very, very, very dark. And I also was looking through a book about Yosemite and saw some of the indigenous peoples from when Yosemite was first discovered, which we know it wasn't discovered. And Yosemite actually doesn't. Anyhow, that's a whole nother video. But that the people were very dark. And so what I'm learning is we've been told we came from Africa, but there was a whole group of people that came here first, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Italian, and they moved everybody around, and there were kind of laws and things established then that we're not really taught. We're kind of taught from the European or the white European English history. And from what I've learned, it's been mistaught. So I'm saying all this because it's like I'm slowly learning that we have been mistaught about a bunch of things. And I think we noticed it in certain situations, like what happened with 9/11. And I find it really interesting because I do see that there are people who remember about Tower 7. But what's really weird is I heard about it that morning. I was on a trip, so I totally remember it. And I heard about it that morning, but the information now is that it happened in the evening. And so I also think that there's like this technology that kind of like skews or helps us forget things. Because the other thing is, does everyone remember about 5 years ago when there was a whole thing about the Confederate flag already? Obama was president at the time, and he basically made it illegal to have the Confederate flag in the United States. By the way, it still exists. Just a side note. And I'm not saying that we should get rid of those things. It's like, okay, so to today's video, I share this information with you because I think it's key as to like what's behind the scenes. So for example, I want to talk about the laws of the universe and some of my theories. Okay, so basically in all those things that I had learned, I am now realizing, you know, I used to really want to be a teacher, and because I got in trouble when I was younger, like I got myself in trouble, I wasn't able to be a teacher. And I'm actually now very grateful that I wasn't able to become a teacher, because I feel like I would have been teaching everybody all this stuff and fully believing it, not realizing I'm reteaching misinformation, basically. So, okay. I'm going to be doing an extensive part about the moon in compared to the moon and the 9-day calendar in comparison to our 7-day 4-week calendar, and what today would actually be. Because I did a whole bunch of research and figured out last year the moon cycles, this year's moon cycles, and even next year's moon cycles, and I noticed some very interesting things, and so I want to share these with you guys. Okay, so first why I'm sharing this is because I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening that, and I link it to narcissism and codependency, because I started realizing there's a tactic that narcissists use to start, and I think it comes from certain governments. I think they figured stuff out. I actually think they figured it out from the magic of the mothers. But certain tactics that they use in relationships to kind of like dumb down and exhaust their victim, so to speak, or partner, or whoever it is, the person they want to control. And then the things that happen in that person's brain, the one who's being controlled, what happens in their brain and in their bodies. And this is why I want to bring up the laws. So I'll start with that because I have some corrections, but I'll get to that. Okay. I have some corrections as far as the names and certain numbers of information I gave before. And I have some corrections. And then, do I have that book in here? No. Do I not? I don't. Where is that book? This might be a 2-part video. So I'll pause it and come back. But I notice sometimes, like, even when I'm videoing without being on even YouTube yet, they mess with my video. Like, what's up with that? Pretty obvious. I'm just saying. Okay. So, the laws of the universe. Let's talk about that, because they're working regardless. Now, I have a theory. I'm starting to think that the laws of the universe are also being mistaught, because if knowledge is power, and it's like they want us to know the truth so that we feel like we have some knowledge. Yet, if even like the Hermetic laws of the Kabbalah and all these like mystery school information, quote unquote, leaks out, are we actually getting the real information? Like, I was thinking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Like, are we getting all the information that he shared? I'm probably not, is my guess. I'm just saying, because then we'd all be privy to it and we'd be able to change things. And I don't think the powers that be want that. Okay, so because in the Hermetic laws, the first law is all is mental. Now I started thinking about this. And in the stories, and almost all the creation stories, they talk about this energy of the creator God, however you want to see this being or this energy. And let's just put it out there that I am fully aware that creative energy has no gender. Okay? I'm fully aware of that. So when I talk about the goddess energy, I think that's because of something that's happened to us mentally, and I'm going to get into that. But as far as like creative energy in general has no gender. It's energy. So I am aware of that. Just And I want y'all to be aware of that. If you're watching, that's the case. Energy has no gender. Okay. Which is going to bring me back to the laws. Okay. So the first law is mentalism, but in the stories, God was lonely. That's an emotion. That's not a thought. That's an emotion. I'm starting to wonder if all is actually emotion. Because emotion is related to water. And then what else is related to water? The moon. Because the moon is luminous. And I think there's something to that, okay? Because to be illuminated, I hope everything's okay with that. I might need to pause this. Check the washing machine real quick. When we talk about like the Illuminati and the illuminated ones, my theory is because they base all their ritual and numbers and everything off of the original information, which was based off of the moon. The moon controls the water on this planet. It helps hold the planet in a certain position. And the moon is responsible for women's cycle. So I think if you can, the sun isn't responsible for our cycle. How weird is that? I mean, it is because of the reflection of the moon, the sun on the moon, to help show us the cycles of the moon. But I think that's almost a hint, because the moon would still be there, but we may not be able to see it without the sun. I don't know. I know this is a little kind of out there. Okay. So the laws of the universe, all is one, or all is mental, right? But if all is emotion, and you look at it as in like a narcissistic school, so to speak, or what you do to help basically control your victim, or the person or people you want to control, you bring in distraction and sleep deprivation. Isn't that everyone on the planet? I mean, with work, you're distracted. With education, you're distracted. With everyday life, I mean, when you're a kid, you can get distracted, but you're kind of distracted by what you're interested in. But as you get older, you're actually distracted more into what benefits the world economically than you are in what you're actually interested in. And so if you're working, 8 hours a day, and then you have a commute, or, then you got to like go to the store, get gas in your car, depending whether it's a commute and you're taking like, public transportation, you're still going to have to wait. There's going to be some time in between. Or even if you're driving, there's going to be some time in between. And then you get home, you feed yourself and or your family and or your animals and or your plants, okay? And then you have only so much time to yourself and then to actually get a proper night's sleep, okay? So that's a whole system. Like within a home, you will see this with narcissistic people who want to control. They literally will like help sustain this lack of sleep. And so then this like and repetition. So you keep repeating the same thing over and over, that brings in distraction and that brings in sleep deprivation. Like, what do we do here? And then also the news. Okay, I hate to say this, but if you can do anything for your emotional body, stop watching the news. If you're under the impression that you won't know what's going on, I'll just share with you my experience. I stopped watching the news in my 20s. I'm 51 now, okay? I stopped watching the news in my 20s because I started realizing, like, every time I would watch the news afterwards, I'd be super depressed. And sometimes for days, because especially where I lived, like, I lived in a town where, like, really terrible things would happen. Just really, just disturbingly upsetting things would happen. And so, and then the general news, and like some channels at the end would be like, and today's good news is there was a puppy adopted, you know, and you're like, oh, that's so sweet. But meanwhile, like all the other 30 minutes, even the weather, it has my emotions all over the place. And so I stopped watching the news because I was like, I don't want to feel crappy. You know, the other thing is, depending on what type of narcissist it is, they will kind of put their emotions upon you in different ways. It could be a way of like, I had a really horrible childhood and no one understands me. And you're kind of drawn in because you want to offer help. The other one is like, constantly something is going on, like something's broken or somebody's, you know, needs help, or there's this car accident even, you know, where they have to be the one to kind of like experience that trauma drama, so to speak, and then it's kind of pushed back on their victim, but they don't really have an outlet to either talk about it or to actually fully understand what just happened. So then we have that in our media, like the bombings, what's happened recently, this virus that's going on right now. There's not a lot of information. It leaves people kind of like having to fill in gaps, fill in spaces. We've had somebody who's been telling us different things for about a year now, and it's left to us to kind of like, this is where the law of compensation comes in. I'm going all over the place. Okay. Laws of the universe. All is one, or all is mental. Okay. I actually think all is emotional. So that means that every single thing affects every other thing. And then the second law is the law of vibration. Okay. If there is a law of vibration. We see it all around us. Colors are a vibration. Numbers are a vibration. Sound is a vibration. Stillness is even a vibration. And each of them correlate to like certain numbers. Okay. So, what I notice mostly is like, even in my own body, but when I'm massaging people, if they're sore on one side, what I've always found, and it's literally like 98% of the time, the other side of their body is far more tight and has less like mobility than the side that they're sore on. Like, what is that? What is that? Well, this is what I think. I think that we're actually highly intelligent beings. But because of how we're taught, we think we know, but we're actually not taught correctly. We're not really taught about physics. We're not really taught about, you know, our connection to the elements. We're not taught that. We're not even taught like really super interesting history, like the Sumerians. We're not taught that history. We bleep on it, it'll bloop. That's like the extent of our history. And then also I've noticed that reading is still important in schools, but it's not like when I was in school. We used to do a lot of reading. And that's interesting because if you don't watch the news, or even if you are interested in the news, you're going to find more information in things that are printed. Like, for example, I remember reading when the George Floyd thing happened, that he was originally arrested for trying to sign a bad check for $20. Well, then the next thing I see being printed is he tried to pass a fake $20 bill. What is it about the number 20? And what is it about us that we will just jump to information and decide that it's true without questioning where this information is coming from? Why is it changing? And who are these people telling us? And like, what is their purpose? Is it really to help us? Because what the heck? I mean, right now, people are losing sleep. People are highly distracted, and then they're also stressed out. So then what happens is your whole system starts like trying to compensate for all the stress that's happening outside of you. We already have that in our culture. Okay. And so the law of oneness, the law of vibration, the law of action. And then we also have the law of cause and effect, the law of compensation, the law of polarity. So I actually think that the law of polarity is where we get the law of gender from. I actually think the law would be, and I mean, who am I? I don't know. I'm just a person, but this is what I've been thinking. That the law would be actually there is no gender. The law would actually be there's only energy and transformation and transmutation. The law of gender would relate back to the law of polarity. I mean, even the way we look at polarity and gender, the way they're represented is very similar, you know, negative and positive, or the feminine divine is considered the negative and the masculine is considered the positive as far as energy goes. And I actually think what happens is when we talk about gender without actually understanding like the laws all together, we compensate. This is a law, and it happens naturally. We compensate. And so these highly intelligent beings who are taught basically something that keeps us in this routine of like a narcissistic relationship where we're distracted, sleep deprived, looking outwardly for information or help to help ourselves feel better, we're actually changing our own DNA without even knowing it, which makes me think not makes me think, but I know that we can change our DNA and heal ourselves. So I think that's the whole point of this whole thing is like, I think our DNA is waking up and letting us know that we're under this illusion. We're under this illusion under the sun when the true illusion should be under the moon, which I will also get to. Okay. Yeah. And then if there's a law of vibration, and vibration isn't everything, but we're not actually aware, say like colors and numbers, certain sounds we can't even hear, like a dog whistle. And also I know that teenagers can hear a certain sound up until about 21. So that's another thing. Like, I think we used to really use these things as information to help us figure out how to stay healthy. And another thing, when it comes to numbers and us staying healthy and us really not knowing about our bodies, did you know that our body's organs go through a regeneration throughout the day, through certain times of the day? And also, when we're sleeping, our mind goes into certain like delta, theta. I think I'm missing one. While we're sleeping. And then when we're awake, we're in beta, I believe. But also we have that in our general mind vibration through certain ages. So I also think that was something we knew. We knew all this stuff, right? We knew that our organs regenerated at a certain time or certain hours. We knew that the child's mind went through theta and delta, and there's another one, alpha, maybe? You know, don't quote me on that. I was just talking about it with my brother. That they're in, that's just their state of mind, is constantly consciously in that space. And so they see and feel things differently than we do. And then like when we're older and we do meditation and we do breath work, we're actually helping our mind and brain go into those certain states of mind. So there's all this information that is out there, but it isn't generally taught. we're generally in the situation where I think we are literally like programmed for codependency and narcissism. Like, I'm convinced that this is how the system works, because in a narcissistic codependent relationship, what ends up happening is the victim will compensate for the narcissist's not taking responsibility or for their emotion. And I mean, don't we do that with television and what we're seeing through the media? Aren't we compensating for our emotions as we see what's happening? And we don't, like, how can we react? I think we do fawning and, you know, or fighting, basically, like, or resistance to actually seeing that we're being manipulated. We are being manipulated. Okay. All right. So I mentioned, and I talked about the laws mostly. Do I have that book in here? Or all the laws? I know that there's 12 laws of the universe. Let me see. Law of oneness, the law or harmony. So that's a big hint. Harmony is a sound and a vibration. Okay. So the law of harmony, the law of vibration, the law of action, the law of cause and effect, the law of compensation, the law of transmutation, the law of relativity. Was that 7? The law of attraction, 8. The law of polarity, 9. The law of rhythm, the law of gender, and I think I'm missing one because I know there's 12. I have them all written down. I have them written down. I just don't know where they're at. And so, like, the law of rhythm and the law of transmutation and these type of things, like, these are all hints to us as to how we can also be aware of the laws and then have them help us in our lives. That the first 3 are unmutable, but I actually think the first one is the first 3, the law of harmony, vibration, and action. I think harmony is vibration and action all kind of put in together. And I think they're broken down so that we, as these beings in these denser bodies, can help ourselves understand how we can, you know, kind of like mutate or transmutate these laws and then help them benefit us. Now, okay. Basically, we're being, yes. Are we even being mistaught the mysteries? I'm just wondering. Okay, so speaking of that, I'm just going to do some quick clarification. So in my last video, I was talking about the names of I said Sibyls. I don't know for sure that they were Sibyls. It's just my theory because of my research. And then I think I shared with you Zachariah Sitchin's video. I personally think he's racist. I'll just call it out. But he has some good information. Like, that kind of sucks. But isn't that most of our history? So, you know, check him out if you want to or don't. But that it was through his video that I saw the pictures of the 8 intellectual deities were inside of the 7. The 8th one in the middle is representation of the divine goddess, and also, to me, Indigenous Americans. The way she's dressed, the background, how the people are, or Indigenous beings in general, because we're all Indigenous. And at one point, we were much more rooted to the earth and that life. So, the corrections are, so the names are Dialogia. Okay. I said dialectica, but it's Dialogia. And then Mysica, Arithmetica, Arithmetica or Arithmetica, okay, Geometria, Grammatica, and Astrologia. Those were the names of they're called the intellectual knowledges, okay? And then I also said in that video, I talked about the numbers and I gave you the wrong ones. So what I noticed is in the original names, Astrologia, all reduces down to the numbers 9. And then there's some other important numbers in there that if you watch Geometria or you're into Geometria, you'll start seeing some repeated numbers. But we call it astrology. And astrology changes the numbers. So it changes the vibration, right? Because numbers are a vibration. And then Geometria comes to certain numbers, but we say geometry. This is where I did say that one right. And geometry actually breaks down to 9, but geometry wouldn't be the correct name. It would be geometria. And then we would understand that geometry is actually numbers and language put together. The vibration of both numbers and language put together. It's a vibration. So vibration is a law and it influences, and compensation is a law, then wouldn't certain numbers and certain words that carry certain vibrations affect us in certain ways? Just curious, just saying. Okay, so that's, and then rhetoric. Language designed to have persuasive or impressive effect on its audience, but often regarded as lacking in sincerity or meaningful content. Isn't that most of the information that we get? Okay, now, the moon. So, this gets pretty deep, and I hope you're ready for it. All right, so I did a bigger calendar, okay? A bigger calendar. I actually think I'm going to turn the camera around, and because I have a lot of information here and you might want to write it down. Okay, so here is the moon calendar that I created. So this is 2 months that's showing here. All right, this would be the original 9-day week calendar. Okay, that we used to have back in the day. And what I've done here is I've also separated what would be our now, but we have the Gregorian calendar, 7-day week. And then what I notice is sometimes we'll have 30 days, sometimes we'll have 28 or 29 days, only February, just 1 month out of the year. And then we'll have 31 days, right? Because this would be 30 days, 7 times 4, right? 7 times 4, 29, 31 days. Okay. I didn't have that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 29, 30. So we would have one more day. I didn't mark that off. Do I have a pen in here? I don't. But interesting, because I was thinking, yeah, we have nine days actually taken out of the traditional 9-day week calendar, or 10 days taken out, kind of moved out, right? So what I keep seeing is the repeated number 9. And I also, in the research of like geometry and arithmetic, you'll see in almost all the measurements that we have for the triangle, for an octagon, for all these different shapes, they all reduce back down to 9. It's pretty fascinating. Okay, so the other thing I did is I put the planets that would go with our days of the week. So the first day I said moon, I kept saying moon in my last one, but really what I mean is the Earth day, because if there are 9 planets, I think that we look to the energy of the 9 planets, which if we look at how they break down the month and how they break down the moon calendar to the Gregorian calendar, you'll start seeing some interesting connections to the moon. Okay. So, the first day, the new moon would be Earth Day. And then the next day would be Mars. We're basically going in the distance from Earth to these planets. And that's how that's how I'm guessing the original calendar went. Because the one thing we don't know are how they looked at the planets. But what I started looking at it as, like, even in our 7-day calendar, they would have us a little backwards, where Sunday would actually be the Earth or Moon Day. Monday would be actually Mars Day. Tuesday would be Venus. Wednesday would be Jupiter. Thursday would be Mercury. Friday would be Saturn. And then Saturday would be Neptune, which would actually make more sense when they are teaching us that we're in the energy of Saturn, when on certain Saturdays we're actually in the energy of Neptune. But if we're going off of, say, this month, so I did a little smaller one down here of January 2021. So right now we would be on this day. This would be Saturday today, okay, the 9th. When technically, if we were going off of a 9-day calendar, so one of the things that's interesting is this year, on January 1st, we were in a waning Gibbons, okay? And now the other thing we start realizing is in the cycles of the moon, there's certain energies. So all of last year, the first days of the month started on a waxing crescent, on a waxing, let's say, January 1st last year, we had a waxing crescent on the first day. And then starting in February, we had waxing gibbons all the way up until July, where then we had, no, I apologize. So we had waxing crescent, January 1st, February, waxing gibbons, March, first quarter moon. And then we had a first quarter moon through April, May, June. And then in June, we had waxing gibbons the first day. And then July, we had waxing gibbons. And then we had August, waxing gibbons. And then September 1st of last year, we had a full moon. And then because we would always start our months with the new moon, because the new moon energy is where you can focus on what you want to bring in. And each cycle of the moon has a certain energy. Okay. So then, and with waning gibbons, let me just look that up real quick. With waning gibbons, it means self-awareness and reflection, where you can get rid of fear and doubt. It's what is the biggest block? What are we lacking? And then you find out of letting go of that energy. Now, is that possible that they started, that the Gregorian calendar actually will set into certain times of the moon's energy that influence us, but we're not even paying attention because we're going off of the sun and the Gregorian calendar, totally ignoring actually what's really happening on the first days of the months with the moon. I think there's something to that. So, okay, so today technically is Saturday, but if we were going off of the 9-day moon calendar, so these 2 days, which are being cut off, right, would move over to here. So these days would move backwards. So actually today would be we would go 2 days backwards from today. I know this is hard. That's why I said bring out some notebooks, some pen and paper to write it down. because it's a little confusing. I had to go over it a few times. But today would technically be Thursday, and the energy would be Mercury, which makes sense, right? Because Mercury is the messenger. Mercury also is a very communicative energy. There's certain colors that go with it and a certain vibration. So while we're all calling it Saturday, technically today would be a Wednesday, or, you know, named after Mercury. But we wouldn't even have, we might have named the days of the week before. I think that's highly possible, but I don't know that. I don't know that. But the energy would be Mercury today, not Saturn. Tomorrow we would be in Saturn's energy, and then Monday we'd be in Neptune's energy. Tuesday we'd be in Uranus's energy, and then Wednesday we'd be in Pluto's energy. And then what would happen is we would then be moving in to the new moon, right? Which is right here, according to January's calendar. But we're actually, we've put them Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, but technically this would be the beginning of a new month, not the middle of this month, because we end on a, let's see, we end on a full moon, I think, the beginning of a full moon. And one of the things I heard is that like 72 hours after a full moon is when we have the waning gibbons, if that's correct. I might have said that wrong. But there's numbers in even the moon's cycle, which could be being used behind the scenes, so to speak, in the ritual of those who actually know this energy. And we would be in total cognitive dissonance because we're going under a calendar that changes the moon cycle, that changes how we process our own bodies and mind and spiritual connection to the planet. Of course, we're going to be in an illusion and in a fog. Of course we are. And then I noticed that for next year, I actually think we start the year with a new moon. We do. Let's see. Yeah. So January of 2022, we will actually be starting the year with a new moon. And so is it possible that knowing the cycles of the moon, I've kind of mentioned this before, knowing the cycles of the moon, if you are of an order of mystery school that is actually taught correctly? Because even Thoth said he followed the moon, you know, this being. And we talk about, what was the word I figured out? So Thoth, talk, talk, I can't remember the other word. I was like, oh, it relates back to Thoth. I think that this is the true number magic. I think this is the true energy, because the moon has such powerful energy over us, the waters. And so if you control the moon and you control the women of the world, then is it possible that you would have full control? And the moon and the waters, and even like the feminine, is considered emotion. So I think through this is where so even where like the sleep deprivation comes in, the repetition of a different energy being shown and taught to us. And then also these certain firsts of the month and all the energies we give to it. Yeah. And that we're only focused on 7 planets when there are a total of 9. And I think that Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto pull us into darker places, deeper places, and more magical places. But if we're not actually given those days to practice that, but they know it and they're practicing it, I don't know. That's some of my theory. This is a lot to share with you guys. Here's some of the information that this is for next year, 2022. I know my notes are kind of all over the place, but zoom in a little bit so you guys can do your own research. That's January right now. And then the extra 2 days are kind of showing what it would be if we had the 9-day calendar. And then you can see where I kind of loop backwards, because I'm basically saying, like, if we did have the 9-day calendar, then the moon would go back these couple of days and we'd be in a different cycle. Okay, well, I think that is the video for today. I wanted to get into some of the goddesses' birthdays, but I think that, I don't know where my book is, but if I'm correct, in the book that I have, it has like all these, it's like a big book of all the spirits and gods and goddesses, as many as possible, because it's not all of them. There's a lot though. I think it says that Bridget or Brighton's birthday is January 7th or January 9th. Also that the goddess's birthday usually falls on the 1st of the month, which would be technically the new moon, right? So just some things to consider, think about, some of my theories. And I'll do some more, you know, I'll be back doing other videos. Yeah, so the only other thing is just to clarify where it comes to the, do a little research if you'd like on the truth about the American Indians and those who have been told they're African American. Do a little research on the goddess and the original, you know, some of the original artifacts that have been found all around the world. And just some general thoughts as to what we've been taught and what might actually be the truth. I'm still learning. I don't know. Just some theories. All right. So for our ending, we're going to do some more sound bowl real quick. And say to you, thank you for listening and being here and sharing this time with me and being on your own search for more information. And may you be uplifted and supported. May the land around you, your family, your friends, your children, yourself, your plants, your endeavors be favored. All right, until next time.